Assalamu alaikum warahmatullah. I think the preliminaries have already been carried out, and there is no formality left at all, right? Recitation has been done? Okay. So I am at your disposal now. If any one of the guests would like to ask a question or two, she is most welcome, please. You already got the names?
They're sitting on the left side.
Right, over there. So please, let's start straight away. Somebody should invite, like, in Ansarullah, there was one moderator who invited them one after the other because had got the list of those who had desired to ask questions. So it was a very orderly performance. So you can go to the microphone and invite the guests one after the other, please.
She's the first one, she just gone out. That you know.
Acha, right. Come to, yes.
Thank you.
Yes, please.
Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullah.
I just went outside to see where is my daughter.
It's all right, yes. I just met her there.
Yeah, you know her?
Yes.
Oh, thank you. You
A
have
small, very cute child, isn't she?
That's right.
That's right, yes.
Thank you. I'm Ahmadiyya from Luton, and I'm Bosnian refugees. I'm here.
You're the one whom I misunderstood for somebody else last time.
Yes,
That's
it was
right.
Merima.
You sat over there.
That's right.
That's right.
She was translator for a long time.
Quite.
And you asked for her father. I have information her father feels very well now.
I see.
I saw him recently.
I'm so happy.
Yeah. I'm living here for 3 years. I read a book about True of Ahmadiyyan, and my knowledge about Ahmadiyyan are little higher than, of course, before. I found so many interesting things in this book and make me thinking about lots of questions. But one I found it very interesting. It's one time Hadhrat Ghulam Ahmad, peace be on him, offer 10,000 rupees for everyone from another religions, from Catholic or
anyone,
Arya, Brahma, doesn't matter who, to just explain 1/5 of them religion, as much as he can explain Islam in his book Braheen-e-Ahmadiyya. I'm interesting, does anyone until his life took his offer and just tried to explain 1/5 of religion? What's not so much, isn't it?
None, to my knowledge, has taken up that challenge so far.
During his life?
Even after that?
Even not today?
Yes, because this Braheen-e-Ahmadiyya is a very, very difficult book, even for a learned leader to understand easily. It is so full of possible arguments in favor of Islam and critical of others who have been attacking Islam from different angles, that Zafullah Khan Sahib, late Sir Muhammad Zafullah Khan Sahib, who had a very good command over English, well worldwide known. He was also one time the chairman of the United Nations. He told me that of all the works of translations he had undertaken, this is the most difficult. It is so concentrated in knowledge and wisdom and arguments based on the Quran, on common understanding, etc., that even my father, who was an extremely wise and intelligent person, he said, it is difficult for me to read this book continuously for more than a few pages. Why? Because at every turn of the sentence, my mind is taken to my mind takes flight into some direction. It was not because he couldn't understand it. It was because so much was said in this that at one point his mind would take flight into one area of thinking and philosophical contemplations and so on, and then he would return, then he would start the next sentence and another take-off point. So that is why this book has never been answered so far by anyone, and never even been attempted to be answered. So that 10,000 rupees still lie in wait for them. Right.
Sister Kathy Hamilton.
That's right.
Assalamu alaikum, Hussa. I'm really glad to be here today.
Could you kindly come closer to the microphone, please?
Sorry.
Yes, better.
Assalamu
Wa
alaikum,
alaikum
Hussa.
salam.
How do you feel that Muslim women can adhere to the teachings in the Holy Quran, especially in a Western society where morals are very different in regards to violence, sex, alcoholism, and things like that?
Right. You see, I am just coming from a question and answer session with some English friends in the studios upstairs, where this was one of the most important questions they asked, and I have already answered this. But I'll try not to repeat what I said there, because both these programs will be displaced today.
Right.
That is my problem. So the question regarding the Muslim ladies confronting challenges from a promiscuous Western society. This is the nutshell of your question. First of all, it should be fully understood that it is not a Christian society which poses any challenges in that area, because no such society exists anywhere in the world today. Christianity has given in to immorality, finally at a level of the church leadership. You see things today which were not unthinkable, no one could dream of such a thing, that the leadership of Catholic or other churches should debate the issue of whether homosexuals should be given ministerial offices in the church or not, while they read in the Bible what happened to the people of the Lot, the people of Lot. And now you see occasionally a bishop appearing on television saying that fornication is after all not that bad and difficult to meet the challenges, you know. So all this is happening to Christianity, and the challenge is both to Islam and Christianity together alike. My response would be that religious forces who are genuine and honest and dedicated to the cause of goodness should join hands in this. It should not be an issue where Muslims are left with alone by themselves to tackle this. Because if they do it, they cannot succeed. It will be very difficult for the Muslims in general to succeed. Because what happens here is a very complicated affair. When the Muslims take up these values, which are protective of chastity, then they are looked down upon as bringing in their foreign culture and obstructing the passage of civilization in our countries. Well, this is absolutely wrong. The fact is that these challenges are as much destructive to Christianity as to Islam, and both should join forces. Otherwise, Islam would be tackled on a different angle, from which would ultimately tend the society to become more racist, while the issue is much deeper than that. In fact, when these things happen in the society freely, then the crime is automatically promoted, all sorts of crime. And that crime which is promoted by certain attitudes of the society as such cannot be tackled properly at the police level. It results into some other more complicated problems. You see, the drugs, alcoholism, and this free mixing and things, permissiveness we may call it, are all part of the same game. They don't stand separately to each other, they are interrelated things. And this society as a whole gives birth to irresponsibility and crime, criminal attitudes, particularly among the youth.
Yes.
The poorer they are, more difficult it is for them to have access to the luxury which is being displayed on television with reference to American, film industry and things. They are, in fact, they are not even true pictures of America. They're just ethereal views of something, a luxury which creates excitement and works sentiments, while they does not increase your access to those luxuries at all. The result is that most of the poor people in the society, they are left in a state of excitement which they cannot fulfill. So it reflects on their views, attitudes, discipline, responsibilities, and then they say, all right, what may happen, we must have something of this pleasure. If not these higher level pleasures of luxury, at least we should be permitted to escape from consciousness. That is alcoholism, drug addiction and so on. And even the poor things do not have enough money for that either. So they have to they have to break into the other people's houses, because driven by the urge of getting drug when you are addicted, once someone is addicted, is a very powerful force within you, from within man, which is very difficult to suppress. So a society which has already become less religious, which is not answerable to God anymore, why should it be answerable to man-made laws and man-made agencies? Yes. So these things promote each other, this complex irresponsibility grows and multiplies. The role of police, the more these things happen, the less effective the police becomes, because the problems are too big for the police to tackle. After a while, a stage arrives where the government exchequer holds its money from being channeled into the police. They say no more. And what can we do then? How can we meet the crime?
That's true.
You have imposed restrictions on our interference with civil liberties. So all right, show some relaxation on these, give police more power, and the result is devastating.
Yes.
Your country is now following the footsteps of those third world countries where police is the biggest challenge to peace and security. Police itself is.
Yes.
You have not drawn your lesson from what happened in France vis-a-vis Algerians in their country, and the free powers given to the police of France as compared to that of England. So I remember the time when I was here as a student, I never read a single complaint against police in those days in any newspaper. Only a word of praise. When you wanted police, it would appear from nowhere. Somehow, it would precipitate from thin air for your service.
Yes.
But here, when you don't want them, they precipitate,
Yes.
They appear suddenly and they play havoc with your peace. Sometimes they break into your houses, even within the short, our smaller denomination of Ahmadiyya experience. I know cases of absolutely innocent Ahmadis whose houses were broken into and doors were smashed suddenly in the middle of the night by police. And they decamped with everything they could lay their hands to. They said, we have been given authority. You can't do anything about it. And every time after 2 months suffering and misery, things were returned and the police had to admit there was no case. But nothing could be done against the police in that, because the police has been now given authorities to do that. So the more authorities you give, the more abusive the police itself becomes. This is the dilemma we are facing. So what my answer again is that we, as Muslims, we should join hands with genuine Christians who are loyal to Christian values, not the church, which only cares for its leadership. But for the people, you know, the genuine Christians who are benign, who are genuine, who are philanthropists, we should tell them, come on, let's join forces and make societies which rise above racist deviance.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Thank you.
Shukran.
Thank you. Jazakallah.
Amina Yusuf, please.
Amina? Yusuf. What you said next?
Yusuf.
Amina Yusuf. You're from?
Ghana.
From Ghana, right?
There
Kumasi or Accra or War or where?
Praise Kumasi.
From Kumasi, right.
Praise Uzu. According to history, Adam has two children, Cain and Abel. After Abel was killed by his brother Cain, Cain ran away to another land and got married. This is my question. Please, if Adam was the first creation, how did Cain get women to marry? Because
Right.
after the death of Abel, before Adam got another child called Seth, according to Bible, Genesis 4, chapter 4, verse 25.
You see, first of all, the real answer is that it is absolutely false to believe that Adam was the first man on earth. The best you can say is that he was the first man in that period of time in the human history who was considered fit enough for God, by God, to carry his messenger with full trust. And so he is the first human being who rose to the status of prophethood. Now, I believe that even then Adam was not just unique and alone in that respect, because there may be many other Adams of that sort appearing in different countries of the world at different times. And they also gave birth to a sort of religion suitable for that period, which began to evolve after them. We read from the history of Aborigines in Australia that their religion began around 40,000 years ago. As far as the existence of human beings is concerned, no knowledgeable person can deny this fact that men or human beings were found in almost all parts of the known world today for around, say, 40,000–50,000 years before the Adam and Eve tale you read about. And as far as the beginning of Homo sapiens or humans is concerned, sometimes some scientists believe that the human race began 115,000 years before, or some take the record even back. Their Neanderthal man, whose remains have been discovered, and it is supposed to belong to, say, 300,000 years ago, or that about. I'm not very sure of this, but I know the figure is around the same area of a few 100,000 years. So discoveries are made in Australia, in Africa, in some other parts of the world, where such remains are discovered of human beings whose scientific study reveals that they had reached the stage of human capabilities. The examination of the skull, the size, the brain, all these things indicate. But the problem is only this, that these early human forms are divided into two categories. One is called Homo erectus and the other is called Homo sapien. The humans as we are Homo sapiens. The Homo erectus is the first form of human life on earth which could stand and walk straight on earth. Erectus, that sort of thing. Instead of walking on the four limbs, first humanoid type of things which appeared on earth are called Homo erectus. They are it is whose remains are found to have been found, whose remains are found buried in some areas of the earth, which can be calculated to belong to an age of 300, 400,000 years before. But as far as the Homo sapiens are concerned, their history seems to be shorter. That is around 100,000 plus. And Adam's history is so short that it's hardly 6,000 years since Adam is known to have been born. And I have seen trees older than Adam today, living trees in America, which are older by a few hundred years or 1,000 years than the age of the whole humanity if it began from Adam. When Adam was born, there was one tree in America in redwood forest which saw the birth of Adam, and it had already grown to adulthood by living for 1,000 years or so on earth. See? So it's all absurd. It's just a simplistic and wrong understanding of divine statements. One should read meanings into those things, and one would find a different message. Adam and Eve were not the very first. So the remaining questions are automatically, disposed of. Right?
Yeah.
Again, from the other point of view, your objections seem to be against Adam's sons marrying their sisters. If there was no other human being. Is that what you had in mind?
Yeah.
So if Adam could marry his own daughter born out of his own rib, what objection there should have been against their children marrying each other? The objection should begin from the beginning. According to these stories, Eve was born or carved out of Adam's rib. So it's a father-daughter relationship. And yet he married her and gave birth to many children. So this is not the fault of the Bible, but the fault either of the scribes who missed some important things or added from themselves certain things to the story, or the fault of the present day scholars, instead of finding other evidence from the Bible which would have led them on to certain truth, the certain truth that Adam and Eve were not the very first. With relation to that story of Abel and Cain, when God punished the murderer brother, it is written in the Bible that he was excommunicated and he was turned out of the country. He was expatriate. No, how do you call it in English? To be thrown out of your country, And there he married among outsiders, people who didn't belong to the nation where Adam was born. So the Bible says it in so many words. So it is the fault of the interpreters not to take the biblical story as a whole and draw rightful conclusions from that. Instead, they concentrate only on the story of Eve being carved out of the rib of Adam and forget the rest of the Bible around it. Right?
Thank you.
Dr. Vidya Rao of Birmingham, please.
Chanda.
Assalamu alaikum.
Assalamu alaikum. Dr. Vidya Rao.
That's right.
From India?
Yes, I'm from India originally. I've been in Birmingham for over 10 years.
Right. Which part of India, by the way?
Hyderabad.
Delhi, at Hyderabad, Deccan.
That's right, yes.
MashaAllah.
So I'm not unfamiliar with Muslims there. But it's different working in Britain.
Yes.
So I have some questions here. I'm a school doctor, I'm a pediatrician in Nottingham.
Could you please
and
come
sometimes-
closer to the microphone?
Sometimes we...
Yes.
Is that all right? Yeah.
Right.
We have this immunization program for school children in summer months. I understand that Ramazan goes back by 10 days every year, is that right?
Right.
But sometimes it falls in, so maybe in a few years' time it will be again in summer months. And we have a lot of problems, especially it costs quite a lot and the days are fixed about 6 or 10 months beforehand. And the injections are drawn up and the drops are all made. And then we find very few children turning up to take the medicines because obviously it's not allowed.
Take the medicine in, within 24 hours, any time?
Those are drops actually given at school.
You see, you are talking of perhaps the winter period more than the summer period. Which period do you have in mind?
Unfortunately, it's in summer.
In the summer, okay.
Yes.
In the summer, you have to immunize mothers or children?
The children at school.
The children don't have to fast? No problem.
I'm very glad to hear that.
The children who have not come of age, they are not expected to fast.
They are between 11 years and 16 years.
They are not expected to fast. They are not bound to fast. Occasionally, by way of practice or out of curiosity, many children opt for that.
I'm very glad to hear this,
Yes, that's
because
right.
the parents say that we don't mind the children taking these injections, but our own religious leaders, they sort of...
You see, you're talking of a misunderstood Islam.
I'm sure that's the case.
But I'm not representing them. I'm representing Islam as we understand in Ahmadiyya community, which we find an extremely enlightened and enlightening religion. And there is never a clash between the genuine needs of man and the religious dictates of Islam.
So will it be all right for us to go ahead and give the medicines if the children are...
You see, it's not all right for you to go ahead and do anything to anybody's children, anywhere in the world. Because the right belongs to the parents and the children themselves. Unless some social requirement is so urgent that a law is passed whereby every citizen is bound to be forced to cooperate with certain measures. That is a different situation. But in principle, this is accepted that the children must be treated with the permission of their parents. And as such, many times I receive letters from schools here that this is our problem, we want to inoculate or do this or that to children, and the children don't like it, or parents have objection. What should we do? I tell them they should be persuaded. They should be told that it's in their own interest that you're doing it. But you can't force anybody to do that. Moreover, it is wrong to believe that inoculation or other such measures are number one, always necessary, number one, always useful, and they do not have any other attendant dangers. I have seen immunization attempts in various diseases producing exactly the diseases against which they were considered to be prophylactic and preventive. Sometimes less vaccine is not properly prepared. A slight imbalance in the virility of the virus or the virus product would create either the danger of that disease showing its symptoms in the body, or being ineffective, it is too low. So many times such vaccines have been withdrawn by even in advanced countries, because when they heard reports that they are not always good, or they have created some side effects not acceptable according to health standards, they are withdrawn. So that's what I mean to say. We cannot overmuch trust these things. And being a homeopath, I know that many situations of vaccination and inoculation can be absolutely avoided because homeopathic offers a better way of preventive measure against diseases for a longer period than these vaccinations offer. And for example, in my family, I have always been giving my children, my wife, etc., these homeopathic medicines as preventives, and we never suffered from typhoid, from other similar diseases which spread all around us, as a proof that they were working, they were effective. Only we had to have these injections when we had to travel to some countries where it was essential, legal requirement. For instance, when we went to Africa or some Australia, etc., they needed it as a legal requirement that we must be inoculated, and then we did. We did get inoculated. This is in general the whole picture. But you find nothing of the genuine requirement of man counter to the teachings of Islam. Right?
Okay, thanks.
Thank you.
Diane Clark, please.
From?
She hasn't mentioned. Where are you from?
Sierra Leone?
From Birmingham.
Pardon?
From Birmingham.
Right, please.
I'd like to know if there's a God Allah, why does he let such suffering and murder and different things that are so wrong in the world continue if there's a God?
Would you kindly repeat this question, please?
She says if there is a merciful,
Closer.
if there is a God who is merciful, why has he allowed all the suffering in the world?
That's right. You see, this is a question which I have dealt with in some depth and at length in a book which is about to be published. And its title is, let me see, just the first word is rationality, revelation. In relation to rationality and relation and revelation in relation to knowledge and truth. This is a complex title, but this is the shortest I could make out of it, because this is a large area of discussion on these matters in which the book deals, and there I have taken up this issue. You understand? So instead of going through all the detailed answers, which requires quite some treatment, it would take me about half an hour or more perhaps to fully satisfy you on this issue, because it's a very delicate question and cannot be understood in a short answer. But if you go through that chapter, then those who have already gone through those chapters outside Ahmadiyya, outside Islam, they were genuinely convinced, yes, we have found an answer to that. So wait for the publication and have your address registered and we'll send you the book. Right? Thank you.
Right. Thank you very much.
Thank you. आप नोट कर लें इनका एड्रेस प्लीज. Next please.
Tina Coombs. Please.
ठंडा होता है हमेशा.
Assalamu alaikum.
Walaikum Assalam. Please.
My name is Tina Coombs. I'm Australian originally, but I live here for quite a number of years with my British husband. We have a family of 3 girls,
yes.
Another one coming. And I agree very much what you say to the lady, Kathy I think was her name, that the Christian and Muslim good people should join forces.
That's right,
because,
yes.
There are so many challenges and pressures on the family today, and everybody, if we are in a Christian or Muslim or Hindu or Buddhist society,
yes, they are all concerned.
Everybody is concerned. Right. And myself here, I work with the Federation for World Peace. Maybe you have heard about it.
Right.
And I was wondering if, what would you suggest? as a practical means that really Muslim and Christian and that we could join forces as a practical
Yes, that's
project.
right.
What do you?
In fact, this has been my mission, which I have been trying to perform or do my responsibility to this mission, serve my cause as best as possibly I can. Whenever I visit different countries and meet their intelligentsia, their leadership, political and otherwise, this has always been the message which I keep on the top of the agenda of my discussion. You have pointed out very rightly that this is the most important issue which should be settled not singly by religions.
No, that's right.
It cannot be, but jointly.
Exactly.
And not singly by nations, but jointly by nations.
That's right.
The most difficult problem in the way of settling this issue rightfully is that the United Nations itself is incapable of dealing with this issue because it is the most disunited nation in the world. This is a hard fact. Only nations united in name, while it is the supremacy of America which is being expressed through United Nations, or attempted to be expressed through United Nations, and there is nothing of unity in that body of the World Forum. Now, religious problem is that the religious leaders themselves do not want to cooperate with others on these things, because then there is a very likelihood of their losing their own ground to some other religions.
That's right.
So they want to create distances between Christianity and Islam, between Hinduism and Islam, and so on and so forth. So that is why it is the religious leadership which is responsible for all such explosions which put Muslims and Christians apart once again, and they begin to distance themselves after having come closer. I gave the example of Salman Rushdie and his work. It can be proved beyond a shadow of doubt that he had a full blessing of Christian church and also of Judaism. It was the Penguin, the complex of publishers, which advanced him $1 million for that book, for that filth, I should say. Now, why should Christians and Jews join hands in creating an explosion which would set apart the Muslim and Christian nations of the world?
Yes.
The obvious benefit would be most likely drawn by the Jews themselves, because if they remain bracketed with the Western world under the racist heading of being whites, it suits them. And if the Muslims come closer to the West through Christian Islam alliance, that would go against the interest of the world Jewry. That is what I feel. I'm not sure, but this is my reading of what may have happened. And I know that Salman Rushdie, as far as religion is concerned, is an unlettered man. He is not the type of person who would waste his time in study of religion. Right from the beginning, he was brought up in such Christian schools in India as would diminish his interest in Islam and things, and would try to develop him as a sort of westernized Indian. And this is his background. He has been promiscuous in his ways of life. He's been all sort of things except a white man. That he couldn't be. But to adopt the follies of the Western culture seems to be an advantage to a person of the third world, because then he has that simple complex in him that now I am like them. to act freely, to have no regard to Islamic injunctions and Islamic teachings of abstaining from wine, alcohol, other things, etc. If you live a free life, the study of religion becomes the most boring thing for you.
Yes, that's right.
I'm talking of that psychological setup. How on earth could Salman Rushdie be led to that study of Islam which led him to all those areas of criticism where many hundred years of Christian investigation had led the Western world to? How, in a nutshell, he suddenly came to learn of the 300 years of hostility on the part of Christian fathers and their literature against Islam. And wherever they were assisted by some stupid Muslim scholars in finding room for censure, they picked those points, and that was all their Islamic study was. Now Salman Rushdie, if you read him, it's difficult I know, but if you read him, then you will see him, you can trace him all along back to the same path. He has no personal study of Islam whatsoever, because he doesn't seem to have seen the other side of the picture at all. A genuine investigator, even if, and particularly when he is born to a Muslim parents, would not be inimical. At least if he is not sympathetic, he would be neutral. But he is trained as a man not only hostile, but absolutely abusive of the most noble traditions of Islam, the most noble personages of Islam. I can trace him back to certain books which were published only within the last 50 years by some Christian scholars, and the titles which were given to their chapters were exactly repeated by Salman Rushdie. So it was a conspiracy. It didn't happen by chance. He had written some other filthy literature and nobody knew him. He didn't belong to that class of artists or the writers who would immediately become popular because of their very special stance and style and understanding of life. He was completely ignored as a small man. But when he unleashed his attack against Islam, suddenly he became the most popular man in the world. Of all those who censured Islam, he stood out. Presidents met him, United States President, Canadian. What was happening? That is the danger to which I am trying to point out, that there is continuously an underlying current of hatred of Islam and fear of Islam, which is expressed in these attempts and which stand in the way of bringing the Muslim world community with the Christian world community together. And in this, unfortunately, the unseen hand of crime is very powerful. It works and nobody can stop it.
Well, but there must be a way to...
Pardon?
There must be a way so that...
the simple way is, like one I adopted, but I miserably failed in creating any impression on the world. You know why? I held, for instance, a press conference on the issue of reaction of on the issue of Iranian reaction to Salman Rushdie and all the debate it generated. And it was a very well attended press conference where all the national press was represented and the smaller press from different countryside were also represented. And I was received with great courtesy and nodding of the heads in my favor when I answered these questions from Islamic point of view. But do you know what, in the end, what I said? I told them, thank you very much for all this courtesy and agreement on many areas of so far erstwhile differences, but I tell you, nothing will be published tomorrow in the press. And some, of course, understood, but some naively asked this question, why do you say that? Why shouldn't it be published? I said, because if I had said a single sentence supporting the attitude of Khomeini, then you could have splashed the headlines in the papers. But because I am defending Islam so reasonably, so convincingly, that the very purpose of the publishing of this book would be lost if you issue my statements. So the next day, I think only we found in one small paper, in one corner, in small print, the news that I had addressed a press conference, and that was that. Even those who were genuinely interested in publishing, some of them were contacted by us. They said, we wrote an excellent article about it, but it was rejected by the authorities of the, who control. It's not the right of every correspondent to write whatever he likes. It's not always published. To find place in the article, in the paper, requires a a higher level decision. So in this case, every time the decision was against the publication of this. I've traveled Europe, I went to America, I went to Canada. Everywhere I held press conferences to remove misunderstandings of the Christian world regarding the Islamic reaction, and never in any country was my interview published. While on other issues, they published my statements. It's not that they belittled me. It is because they did not want these statements to be highlighted because they favored Islam. Right?
On behalf of the Federation for World Peace, can I invite you for an interview, maybe sometime when you have time next week?
Yes.
Would that be possible?
If you mean you could come here and interview me anytime you feel like, if I have time, of course, but I'll find time for you.
That would be wonderful.
Most certainly.
Are you available?
You can come and your interview could be televised to the whole world, if you so like.
Well,
and if you want it to be published, if you want to be published alone, just published, then it's your choice.
Yes.
I'll be ready.
Okay.
Thank you.
I don't have a television, but we would be happy to meet you if you have time.
Do please.
Okay.
After my return from the continent, I'm visiting the continent, Germany, etc., for about 14 days.
Next week you will leave?
Tonight. This afternoon, in fact.
Okay.
So after I have returned, you can reach us through the contact, or directly you can write to me.
Okay.
And inshallah we'll arrange some interview, okay?
Thank you very much.
Not at all, thank you.
And have a safe journey to Europe.
Thank you.
Miss Rahmatullah, please.
Miss Rahmatullah. It's a name which you generally do not find in Africa.
Yes.
Rahmatullah.
Yes.
It's a unique thing to hear of somebody called Miss Rahmatullah.
Miss Rahmatullah.
You're from the Gambia?
No, Senegal.
Senegal, nice. Mm-hmm. The figures of the Gambians and Senegalians are very similar. You know, the Gambia is surrounded by Senegal.
Yes.
So the style of people, their features, their statures are very similar, aren't they? Yes. Please. You speak French?
Yes, I speak
Right.
French.
Parlez-vous français? Seulement français?
Je parle français
Oh,
un peu
also English?
africain,
Okay.
un peu africain.
Speak in English then, please. Huh?
Assalamu alaikum, Hazrat.
Microphone adjust कर दें, आवाज ठीक है.
As I know, Muslim and Christian are different religions, and most of the time people said it is two ways. Muslims believe in God and Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and Christians believe in Jesus, and it is two ways, but we are all going in the same God. But I don't know from that which religions are true. If we are all going in the same God, why aren't we the same?
But you know that, don't you? You already know it. It's a very simple, universal formula to be applied. You know, those periods of history when Jesus was not yet born were treated by God differently from the time when Jesus was born, or exactly alike? Is there any visible difference of treatment of God of His creatures after the birth of Jesus Christ? And also, was it different treatment by God in relation to other regions of the world where Christianity had not reached, the message of Christianity had not reached? Do you find the different treatments of the Creator divided in time or in space? None whatsoever. It's the same one God who manifests Himself to all the countries of the world alike and all the people of the world alike, and has been doing it in all the ages exactly the same way. So there is no duality in God. So there is no need for knowing or believing in a sort of duality which does not relate to us anyway. You understand? Now this is my attitude as a human being. I am not quoting the Quran or quoting the Bible either. So I'm not taking up a debate based on scriptures. I'm just speaking as a human being, as a universal image, a representative of man. I personally can't believe in anything which presents God against His image, reflected in nature and in the creation of man and in the history of man. Right? As far as the concept of sin being born out of the first sin of Adam and Eve, this is also completely rejectable, because Adam and Eve were not the first people. And they were not the forefathers of all the human beings we find on earth. Because as all the Christian scientists have established and sociologists have established, at least the people of Australia anteceded the birth of Adam by some 34,000 years. This is their known history. So where did they get their propensity to commit crime or sin from? From where? They were not descendants of Adam and Eve. Chinese may not have descended from Adam and Eve, but some other Adam, because their history also goes back to far more than 40,000 years. You may call it legend or myth, or whatever you may call it, but as far as the history goes, the Chinese history, it puts the date of their beginning back to some hundreds of thousands of years. You know, the first known heroes who appeared in China, whose names are mentioned in their history, belong to an age, 100,000 years or so. So that is why I say there is no problem whatsoever. The fact is that we must find areas of unity in religions, in Christianity, in Hinduism, in Islam, in Judaism, and that is the wisest policy we should pursue. Instead of wasting our time on differences, we must concentrate on points of commonality, and thereby we can build an equation which will be useful for the mankind as such. So I would like you to concentrate on that point. When you study the morality of Christianity, fundamentally it is the same as the morality in every other religion. So what is common, why shouldn't we concentrate on that and join forces to achieve that. What we lack here on earth is the moral teaching of religions. It is only the moral teachings of religions which can bring man together and unite it. As far as the doctrinal teaching is concerned, it has always been responsible for factionalism, for deviance, for disruption, and so on and so forth. Unfortunately, still religious leadership emphasizes doctrinal differences, while they should highlight the points of commonality as far as the teaching between man and man is concerned, the conduct of man towards his brother or sister is concerned. There they will find almost all religions in agreement, because they speak the language of conscience, the universal human language. You understand? Yes, please.